D.B. Cooper.
D.B. Cooper.
D.B.
D.B. Cooper.
D.B. Cooper.
The hijacker, carrying a briefcase which held explosives.
He pulled off the impossible and vanished into legend. In 1971, a man known only as D.B. Cooper jumped out of a commercial airplane with $200,000 strapped to his body, disappearing into a stormy night sky without leaving a trace. For over 50 years, the mystery haunted law enforcement, inspired movies, books, and endless theories. But in 2025, everything changed. New technology, long-preserved evidence, and relentless obsession may have finally unmasked the man behind America's most legendary unsolved crime. The question isn't just who D.B. Cooper was, but how he almost got away with it forever. November 24th, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving. A nondescript man in his mid-40s, wearing a business suit, white shirt, and black tie boarded Northwest Orient Airlines, Flight 305 from Portland to Seattle. He paid cash for his one-way ticket, giving the name Dan Cooper. Shortly after takeoff, he calmly handed a note to flight attendant Florence Schaffner. At first, she ignored it, assuming it was just another man hitting on her. But Cooper leaned closer and whispered, "Miss, you'd better read that. I have a bomb." Inside his briefcase, he showed her wires and red cylinders, enough to make her blood run cold. Cooper demanded $200,000 in unmarked bills, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle. No drama, no panic, just cold, precise instructions. When the plane landed, he exchanged the passengers for the cash and parachutes, keeping a few crew members aboard. Then he ordered the pilot to fly south toward Mexico City. Low, slow, landing gear down, cabin depressurized. Somewhere over the dense forests of Washington, D.B. Cooper opened the rear staircase of the Boeing 727 and jumped into the freezing rain and darkness. When authorities stormed the plane in Reno hours later, he was gone. No sign of Cooper, no parachute, no money. Just an enduring American legend. The manhunt that followed was one of the largest in U.S. history. FBI agents, National Guard troops, and local police scoured the vast forests of southwest Washington. The Air Force deployed spy planes like the SR-71 Blackbird to photograph every inch of terrain. They interviewed thousands, followed leads across the country, and eliminated hundreds of suspects, but found nothing. No body, no parachute, no clear evidence. The case grew colder by the year, with the FBI chasing ghost stories and false confessions. One man, Richard McCoy, pulled off a similar hijacking and was caught, but the physical differences were too great. Another suspect, Dwayne Weber, confessed on his deathbed, but DNA ruled him out. No matter how hard they hunted, Cooper stayed just beyond their reach, turning from a wanted man into an American myth. Still, small discoveries kept the story alive. In 1978, a boy digging on a sandbar along the Columbia River unearthed a rotting package of $20 bills, totaling $5,800. Serial numbers matched the Cooper ransom money. Then there was the clip-on tie Cooper left on his seat, cheap, black, and covered in tiny metallic particles. Some investigators believed it hinted at an aerospace or engineering background, but the lead went nowhere. Over time, the legend of D.B. Cooper grew beyond the crime itself. He became a symbol, an anti-establishment folk hero, a man who beat the system. Conventions were held in his honor. Books and documentaries fueled endless speculation. Was he a disgruntled veteran? A wronged airline employee? A ghost who never existed at all? For decades, it seemed no one would ever know. Then, half a century later, the impossible happened. In 2025, the FBI's forensic labs unveiled a revolutionary DNA recovery technique using quantum computing and nanoscale sequencing to reconstruct degraded samples. Suddenly, evidence once thought useless became a treasure trove. The first thing they re-examined? That forgotten black clip-on tie. For decades, it had sat in storage, a silent witness. But under the new process, scientists isolated multiple DNA strands, one of which didn't match any known crew or passengers. It was almost certainly Cooper's. Advanced particulate analysis of the tie revealed something even more tantalizing: traces of a rare chemical compound used by a specific aerospace contractor who had worked on early Boeing 727s. Cooper hadn't just been familiar with planes. He had likely worked on the very model he hijacked. After years of dead ends, the trail was alive again, and hotter than ever. As investigators cross-referenced DNA findings with employment and military records, one name surfaced again and again: William Bill Gossett, a former military paratrooper, a technical advisor for Boeing subcontractors, laid off just before the hijacking. Gossett matched every piece of the puzzle. His parachuting experience was elite, trained for night jumps and storm landings. He had insider knowledge of the 727's rear stair system. After his layoff, his financial situation crumbled until, curiously, he suddenly made a large down payment on a new house in early 1972. His children remembered him disappearing for days around Thanksgiving 1971, returning with no explanation and more money. Even photos of Gossett from the era, digitally aged and compared to Cooper's composite sketches, revealed a chillingly close match. Piece by piece, the legend was turning back into a man, and that man was Gossett. For decades, most experts believed Cooper must have died in the jump. The weather was brutal, the terrain unforgiving, but new atmospheric simulations painted a different picture. Advanced modeling by NASA showed a brief 7-minute window where conditions were survivable, coinciding exactly with the time Cooper likely exited the plane. A former Navy SEAL and parachuting instructor reviewed the data and concluded that an expert, especially one trained in halo techniques like Gossett, could have survived. Even Gossett's medical records revealed a suspicious injury: treatment for a badly sprained ankle and back issues just 6 weeks after the hijacking, consistent with a hard parachute landing. The odds were brutal for an amateur, but for someone like Gossett, it wasn't just possible, it was probable. But there was one final twist. Evidence suggested Cooper might not have been alone. Investigators uncovered hidden links between Gossett and several former military associates: old cell phone records, bank transfers, even a buried metal box found near a cabin owned by an old paratrooper friend. All hinted at a small, tight-knit network that helped him escape, recover, and vanish. A private plane flying out of a regional airfield near the landing site on the night of the hijacking raised even more questions. This wasn't just a lone man's gamble. It may have been a coordinated escape mission, planned with military precision, designed to leave no witnesses and no trail. In the end, it wasn't luck that let D.B. Cooper vanish. It was planning, precision, training, and above all, patience. For decades, he lived quietly, blending back into society while a nation obsessed over his mystery. Thanks to revolutionary science, relentless investigation, and a little help from fate, the man once thought unbeatable was finally cornered, at least in spirit. William Gossett may have taken the full truth to his grave, but the evidence, the DNA, the money trail, and the psychology left behind all tell the same story. D.B. Cooper wasn't just a legend. He was a man who, for one stormy night in 1971, beat the system and almost beat time itself.